Thank you, Misha. Thank you all for being here. It's a joy to be with you. The topic that was announced was Consciousness is All There Is, which is the title of my book that came about a month ago and has been an interesting New York Times bestseller. And the discussion is about consciousness. And the question is, why should we care? What does it do to us to know what consciousness is? Do we have any interest in philosophy or science of consciousness? This is one area. And I see that the club, of course, is the intellectual members. So even intellectually, it's very interesting to ask the question, but what does it mean? Why should we be interested in something like consciousness? And of course, one answer is that it is so important to us in our life. It's something that we take for granted, that we are conscious beings, and that's it. So what else do we need to know? Why should we bother to understand consciousness? But again, without consciousness, nothing has any meaning. You can imagine yourself under deep anesthesia, for example. What does it matter to you if you are the wealthiest person in the world, or the most knowledgeable person in the world, or the most loved person in the world, or not, most hated maybe? It doesn't matter at all, because you're not a conscious being. Under anesthesia, you can go through surgeries. They can do all kinds of things to your body, to your mind in some level. And it doesn't matter. You don't really exist without consciousness. Without being conscious, what does it matter? So what is that consciousness? What makes it so important for us? And recently, in the past 30 years, scientists have started to look at consciousness to understand actually where it comes from, how it develops, what can we do about it. In my case, even though the title of the book is Consciousness, and consciousness is all there is, it is not by trying to understand consciousness that I came to this question about what is the meaning of consciousness. Consciousness was not for me part of the question. Actually, it turned out to be the answer, part of the answer. Part of the answer to big questions. Questions that we all ask ourselves when we are young, and that we start our life and want to understand why we are here in this universe. Where do we come from? Do we have freedom? Or everything is deterministic? Are there laws? Are the strict laws that determine our life and behavior? And for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So are we really free individuals? And these are big questions in science, in philosophy, that have been asked throughout time. And why do we suffer? Why people kill each other? Where is evil coming from? These questions have been generally answered from perspectives of belief in some kind of reality, some kind of force, some kind of divine entity that has decided that these things should be like that. But there are many that remain unanswered. Why suffering, for example? Why a child suffers? What did they do to suffer? And all these other questions that actually remain unanswered in our life. And when I, like many of us, almost all of us, ask these questions, I have wanted to pursue in the search for answers. And I've devoted actually my life to try to understand if we can have any logical answers, whether scientific, whether philosophical, existential, whatever. Can we ever find a true convincing answer to these big questions in life? And I thought we can answer them probably by understanding the human nature, the human physiology, the human body. And why I thought that at the beginning, which I changed my mind later, so we'll get to that, but so that you don't think I stayed on that paradigm, is because I thought everything is physical and material, that the universe comes from a big bang, some kind of explosion of energy, and that this energy somewhat cooled down, collected into fluctuations of fields, and those became particles, and then particles came together, they created atoms. Atoms came together, they created molecules. Molecules came together, they created cells, and then organs and organ systems. And then with time and evolution, our nervous system as humans emerged. And then somehow in this emergence of the nervous system from the physical energy, something phenomenon came, which is phenomenon of awareness, of consciousness. And then we started to be aware of our reality, where we are. Yes, I'm aware and I am conscious of things. And therefore, consciousness, or the mind, our mind, which is so important for our life and living and the meaning of our existence, is what we call an emergent phenomenon. That is an expression in philosophy to say that it emerges from the activities of the nervous system. And it's a phenomenon which means in itself is not real, but it's kind of an experience on the level of perception, on the level of thinking. It's kind of something in the air and created consciousness. And how did this consciousness come about? And why does it have such an important value in our life? What can we do about it? Is a big question that has not yet fully been solved in science. And not only fully, there is actually no idea, no even hint of how this physical activity of the nervous system, of the brain, leads to the experience of such a subjective, such a personal experience that we call consciousness. So what is consciousness? It is that experience of being, experience of the self, experience on a subjective personal level of everything, including when you look at the flower and you see it red, it gives you an experience, and you experience the redness of the red. Or joy, you experience joy. It's a very personal thing. It's not a mechanical thing. You experience love. You experience yourself as existing. This is very personal and subjective. Nobody will know exactly what you feel or what you experience. In fact, we are all sitting here. We all know that we are conscious and we have consciousness. We are aware because we can examine from the experience on the surface level that we are responding to the speech we are discussing. I can see in your faces that you are following what I'm saying, etc. But I cannot tell that you are really conscious in the same way as I am. You cannot tell what my kind of consciousness is, because of course now we know with artificial intelligence and with robots and on all of that, and we have from science fiction, that you can create actually an entity that responds and behaves and does exactly the same thing, but maybe is not conscious. I could be now a robot, who knows? I could be coming from a different planet and just making you believe that I am human, making you believe that I am conscious, but I am just responding mechanically to whatever I have been trained to say and to respond, and my speech is only something that I have memorized. How can you tell that it's not the case? So consciousness is something very personal that belongs to every one of us, and that is why it is not possible to study consciousness directly. We study consciousness through the effects that it has on us. So how do we study consciousness? We know that there are already in humans different states of consciousness. You go to sleep. During sleep, you are not there in terms of your awareness. If you analyze the brain activity during sleep, it has a certain wavelengths that are going on that are specific to sleep. And there are different stages of sleep where The brain waves have different frequencies. It starts from a higher frequency. It slows down, and then at one point, within about 90 minutes, it shifts into another mode, and you have your eyes starting to move, rapid eye movement, and we know that the person is going into another state of consciousness, which we call dreaming state of consciousness. They call it rapid eye movement state, which means it's a state in which you are dreaming, which means now you have a fantastic kind of reality. The reality that you experience during your dream is not real in terms of the reality that you're experiencing during the waking state. So we know there are two different states of consciousness: sleep, dream, and then waking. So these are the three principal states of consciousness. And each one of them has a signature, which means a different activity of the nervous system, a different activity of the brain, of the physiology, and they have different implications because you need to go to sleep in order to rest and remove the tiredness of the day. The dream also has its function in cleaning up and clearing up certain things and even consolidating your memory. And the waking state is when we are dealing with the outside world. Now, even during waking state, there are different qualities of consciousness. Remember the day when you have slept well and you feel good and fresh. You wake up, you're clear. Things seem good, seems right. You can even feel that things are supporting you, even from the environment. And if there is a problem, you can solve it without a difficulty. And you move on in your life and you're feeling great and things are happening in the right way. As compared to a day when you have not slept well, you have not rested, you can wake up and feel drowsy, you're not feeling good, your consciousness is not clear. A small problem is irritating. You get nervous, you get anxious, you get unhappy, things don't work for you. So the quality of your consciousness has an impact on how you live your life, how you experience your life. And there are different shades and colors of consciousness. So it can be clear, it can be drowsy, it can be colored, it can be a consciousness in which you are anxious, or a consciousness in which you are depressed, or a consciousness in which you're happy and clear. All of these that we call happiness, clarity, anxiety, depression, love, feeling, they are actually colors and flavors of your consciousness. And that is really what puts the scientists today and all the philosophers throughout the ages in studying the importance of what consciousness is and what can be done about it. What can be done about it is part of programs that deal with consciousness, and that's what we are offering and specialized in. I lead the Transcendental meditation program, which is a program that comes from thousands of years of practice in the ancient yoga traditions, whose focus is actually, when you look deeply into its philosophy and what it teaches, is to develop consciousness. Because at that time, in these ancient traditions, they knew that consciousness can be developed, can be expanded. What is meant to be expanding consciousness? You know, when you are tired and stressed, the brain enters into a way of functioning where it becomes in a tunnel kind of vision. And that is because you are under situation of stress or danger, for example. At least you perceive it as danger. That's what stress is in the modern time. And your brain actually starts working from its lower part, which is the defensive part, which we call fight or flight response. And you literally feel, when you analyze the brain under functional magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, functional means you put some oxygen that has some a little bit radioactive material, and you can tell where the blood is going in the brain. And you see that the blood goes to lower parts of the brain, which are what we call our ancient animal part, like the limbic system, which is a small part within the brain, which deals with fight or flight, to activate all the mechanisms in the body to be able to fight and to be able to, use all our muscles and our clarity of vision. The eyes change, the blood pressure change, the heart rate change, the blood starts flowing to the muscles, and you're ready to go out and fight. So this is what happens under stress. When you are rested and well relaxed, actually the blood flow goes to the higher parts of the brain, cortical parts, which we call the cerebrum, or the higher cortex of the brain, where you actually have different perspective. Now you are thinking of the future. Your awareness broadens. You start thinking present, past, and future. You think of solutions on a broad perspective. You can think of higher values, of love, of living, of unity, of social improvement, of the future. And the parts of the brain that deal with that are in the front of the brain, which we call the CEO of the brain, which is the place where anticipates the future, etc. So literally there are changes in the physiology that happen based on our state of awareness, state of consciousness. And it really shows that we can expand awareness, we can expand consciousness. Because when you are in danger, you narrow down to the specific activity that is ahead of you, which means, like in the jungle, you have seen a tiger, you have either to decide to fight the tiger or to run away. And that is not the time to think about music and love and the future and social activity. So you stop all these things and you go inside. So you narrow your perspective. This is a very, very good thing during that moment. But in daily life, we also have those events that happen, like the door slams, the car, passes in the street. And our system has kind of realized that these are also like dangers, and they get stress, and they stress us, even though it's not the same thing. It's not the tiger jumping in the jungle, but still we have inherited that. And this accumulates and creates wear and tear on our system and narrows our awareness. So what we need is to relax our consciousness, let it rest deeply, and get rid of the stresses and strains that are weighing on our awareness and that are putting us in this mode of almost fighting all the time. This is where transcendental meditation comes in. Transcendental meditation is a mental technique, a simple technique that you practice 20 minutes morning and evening sitting quietly in a chair. There is no need to understand how it works. Even no need to have any philosophical discussion about it. We're discussing all this because you are the intellectuals and you want to know more about how things work and why it is important. But in order to practice the technique, even children who know nothing about all of these things, they close the eyes, they learn a simple technique, and the mind settles down by its own nature. And what is the nature of the mind? The nature of the mind, we all know one thing is very clear. We always want more. We want more happiness, we want more joy, we want more love, we want more wealth, we want more power, we want to hear beautiful things, we want to taste beautiful things, we want to smell nice smells, we want everything to be happy and expanded and more and more. And whenever our mind finds something that is interesting, it tends to go to it. Imagine yourself reading a book and the book is not so interesting. And then your eyes are going through the book. You make an effort to read the book. And then suddenly some nice music starts. And although the eyes are still going through the book and the lines, your mind is with the music. So even though your intention as if was to read the book and you keep looking at it, but your mind is enjoying the music. So the mind goes from one state of interest, one state of action to another completely spontaneously without any effort. So what we do in this meditation is use that nature of the mind and allow the mind to be directed inwards, and I'll tell you why. And it finds its inner fulfillment within ourselves. So what is the mind? If we want to understand it from an analogy perspective, we say the mind is like an ocean, a huge ocean. And that ocean has a silent level at the bottom and waves on the surface. When we are thinking a thought, we are on the surface of the mind. We are like on the waves. But those waves come from the energy and the dynamism of the ocean itself. A thought is like a bubble that comes from the bottom of the ocean and goes up towards the surface, and it expands, and then when it reaches a certain level, it is the place where we are aware, I have a thought. And we don't know where the thoughts come from. But the thoughts come from our inner creative intelligence that is within us. However, we are always floating on the surface, and we don't have access to that inner part of ourselves. So what does transcendental meditation do? Simply, it directs the attention inward. And what you do is let the mind dive within, and guided by its own nature, it is going to find that those settled levels that are within us are more fulfilling, more charming, more interesting in a natural way. And so we have to allow the mind to settle down, and it settles down guided by its own nature. We don't have to force it. That's why we say transcendental meditation is a simple, natural technique. Natural because it uses the nature of the mind. Simple, it's because it doesn't require any contemplation, any manipulation, any forcing, any trying to guide the mind in one way or the other. And we use a sound that has no meaning, that we call mantra, that allows the mind to remain awake in a non-directed way. And that is a sound that is life-supporting, that allows us to dive without being disturbed on the way of diving within. And what this does, it allows the mind to settle down. And since mind and body are intimately connected, the body settles down. And that is where we gain a deep state of rest, inner rest. At the same time, wakefulness. So this quality of restful alertness is different from sleep, dream, or waking, because in none of these states, normal states of consciousness, you have the combination of very, very deep rest, like as deep or more than sleep. At the same time, you're awake, you're wakeful, you're very alert. So your entire body mechanisms are alert from inside, and yet on a platform of rest. And that's why they are able to actually heal yourself. The body starts healing itself. And there are hundreds of scientific research studies that have shown that when people transcend like that, and to transcend really means just to go beyond. That's the term, to transcend, is to go beyond. So we go beyond the surface level, we go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And we reach that infinite state of pure silence within and experience that state of fullness, which we call pure consciousness, because you are aware, but you are not aware of anything specific, no memories, nothing is happening there. You are just settled, completely settled within. And that's a very powerful healing mechanism that happens. And if you look at the literature, you find, we have taught hundreds of thousands, actually about 12 million people have learned transcendental meditation and experienced that deep state of being, which is the source of all the outer levels and activity. One thing very interesting is that behavior improves, inner satisfaction improves, intelligence improves in students, creativity improves in different people, and the health improves, and there is very profound rejuvenation of the body, which makes the people younger chronological age than younger biological age than their chronological age. And what is very interesting, it's a phenomenon that is part of the solution about what is the ultimate reality, the big philosophical questions, is that consciousness has an effect which is like a field effect. A field effect is like the field of electromagnetism, for example, or electricity, if you like, or gravity. Gravity is a field that extends throughout the universe. Electricity also, it has different activities at different places, but now we know from science that it is non-localized, which means it's not limited in this point. It has potential to be everywhere. And that is what we call a field. Like an ocean, the ocean is not just in the wave, it's all over. And imagine the ocean to be infinite and unlimited. That is what a field is. So the field of electromagnetism, for example, spreads throughout the whole universe. It has different values at different points, but it is extended like that. So consciousness is a field. It's not a material physical field, but it's a field in the same way as electricity or gravity are also fields. And what this does is creates the effect that the fields are not local. They're not only localized. So when you act on a field, you are creating an effect that is spread out. And what we have found is when a number of people practice this program of transcending together, and they reach the state of deep rest within, and they reach a critical number of people who do it, the effect is also on society as a whole. We have studied this now for about 45 years with 116 different research studies that have shown that when this critical number of people practice transcendental meditation together and the advanced techniques, there are different techniques, what happens is that the effect is emphasized on the people who are practicing it, but it also spreads out in society. So what we have seen, it's a direct correlation between the number of people practicing this program and things like accidents of the road, crime, hospital admission, infant mortality, and all kinds of other indicators. These indicators are independent one from the other because why should hospital admission be related to infant mortality? It could be, you can find the logic, but they are different. Why would crime have to do with accidents of the road? And yet, when you bring what we call collective consciousness to a state of deep rest, deep calmness, it influences not only those people who are practicing this technique, but it also influences all aspects of society and lead to very positive changes in society, reduction in conflict, reduction in crime, etc. And so that is one of the answers to the bigger philosophical questions that we can take briefly, and then I'd like to open the floor, if you like, for more discussions, answers, and questions, so it becomes interactive. The big question is, what is the nature of life? What is the ultimate nature of reality? And I started by saying that I thought that I could understand everything if I studied the physiology. Because I thought, as we discussed at the beginning, that consciousness comes from the brain's activity creates awareness, and therefore, let's see how awareness is created, how consciousness is created from physical activity of something material. But studies now for over 40 years by scientists in every lab possible have not found any hint of possibility of how the subjective personal experience can come from a mechanical electrical activity in the brain. There is absolutely no solution. So if anyone tells you there is a possibility that consciousness comes from the activity of the brain, you can tell them, no, there is no proof. And in fact, indeed, there is no proof. So then what is the reality of life? Where do we come from? Do we come from some energy? We don't know where it came from. And the answer is, we come from consciousness. We come from a field which is non-material, non-physical. And that field is a field of consciousness. That field reflects on itself because it's consciousness, it is conscious of itself. And through a certain dynamics, it creates different perspectives on itself. And ultimately, these perspectives are what become the apparent physical universe. Now, that's a long story. And if you want to know the full story, you can read the book, which I hope you will have, where I explain in detail how can consciousness appear as physical reality and what's the importance and implications of that on our well-being, on how we solve our problems. And to make a long story short, we can only solve our problems, we can only have greater well-being, we can solve the problems of the world on the level of consciousness. It is not going to be on the material physical level. The material physical level is a means, it's a way, but all the material physical level is actually a field of consciousness. And there are many implications to that. Implication number one is that we have freedom. Yes, the paradigm of consciousness as being primary, as a field, allows and actually demands that we have freedom. So we do have freedom. Yet, there are laws. So how possible is it that you can have freedom and yet deterministic laws? And the way it works is you have the freedom to choose, but once you made a choice, the results of your action are determined. So if we plant an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree. You're not going to get mango tree. And that is your ability to plant a seed of a certain kind is your choice, but the result of your choice is dependent on laws of nature that are very specific and that leads to a certain outcome. And you have the ability to change the outcome with creativity. How can you do that? You say, okay, I planted an apple seed, and 5 years later, I go to my garden and I want to eat mangoes. But you find apples. Your consciousness is narrow, you're stuck. You say, I have to eat apples. What else can I do? This is deterministic, right? Now, this is because your consciousness is narrow. If your consciousness was a little broader, you would say, it doesn't matter, I take my apples, go to the market, I sell my apples, and I buy mango. So you have transformed your apples into mango. So you still have the choice, but your ability to choose depends on your awareness, your consciousness. If your awareness is narrow and you don't know that the market exists, and you don't have creativity and intelligence, you're not able to transform your apples into mangoes. But if your awareness is broad, you can have solutions at every point in your life. So that is the importance of enlarging and broadening our consciousness, which you do by transcending. Transcending means leaving the wave that you are floating on the surface and going down within yourself and discovering that you are the ocean. And then the ocean can manifest any wave, can act on any wave, because then you are the full value of reality. You are that full field that allows all this on the outer value to manifest. So we do realize, and we realize through transcending, that we are that infinite power, that infinite intelligence that actually manages the entire universe, and all of this is within us. And consciousness is all there is. We are not the only ones who have the privilege of being conscious. Everything in the universe is a field and an expression of consciousness, be it for a smaller perspective or a larger perspective. Your cat has consciousness, your dog has consciousness, the tree has consciousness. They're not the same as yours, but they are also on the range of different ways of being conscious. So you can be conscious in a limited way, very limited way, like an atom, like a molecule, just being conscious of the field of gravity. And it doesn't have any thinking about itself, about its future, nothing like that, of course. But it is reacting, interacting, and that is an interaction, a reaction within the field of consciousness on a small level. On a bigger level, you have the cat, you have the dog. On a bigger level, you have the human being. Maybe a smaller level, you have the flower, the tree. This is a range of consciousness. So consciousness is all there is, and the purpose of our life is to evolve in consciousness, to grow in consciousness. And when you grow in consciousness, you ultimately realize that you are the field, you are the ocean itself, and then you have the maximum fulfillment in life. So maximum fulfillment in life comes from the expansion of consciousness, so that you know directly, not intellectually, but directly experience yourself as being the full ocean of life and live the full potential of life in the fullest possible way for happiness and harmony and well-being and a life well lived. Let's take some questions.
So in some of the teachings, it is said that everything is predetermined. So do we have a choice, or everything is predetermined?
Everything is acting and reacting in accordance with laws, so they think that everything is predetermined. But in reality, as I explain in the book, Consciousness is All There Is, freedom is a necessity for manifestation. And how this happens is a relatively long story, but to make it short, the field of consciousness experiences itself and have infinite possibilities within it. Why would it manifest? You know, if you say, well, this is a field of all possibilities, an ocean of being, pure existence, field of consciousness. Why would it manifest? It manifests because there is something it doesn't know. Even though it is itself consciousness and it has all possible awareness or imagination, it has all of these from a perspective of its own reality as an infinite field of pure being. And its nature is to know. So it wants to know in all possible ways. What is it doesn't know? It doesn't know what it is like to be limited. Because it's an ocean of being, absolute pure existence, this absolute pure existence doesn't know what it is like to be you, to be me, to be the dog, to be the tree, because it knows its infinity, and from that platform its knowledge is unbounded, and it knows things almost on an imaginary level. In order to know from a specific perspective, it has to put itself in the shoes of this specific perspective and let that specific perspective be itself, so not determine it. If it determines it, it doesn't learn anything. If it forces to be something specific, to act in a specific way and to have a specific history, then it is not learning anything from the experience. So I'm trying to shorten this complex philosophical question in few words, but what you will find in the book is that freedom is a necessity. In order for manifestation to emerge, there is a requirement, otherwise life and living in perspectives that are limited like ours wouldn't have any meaning. That answers another question also about the meaning of a life and manifestation.
So does it mean that can one make a wrong choice, or whatever choices we make is the right ones, no matter what we think about them?
Well, that's what freedom means. To be free, I'm free, I can make the wrong choice also. And that's why people...
How do we know it's the right or wrong?
Well, from the results of your action.
So, but there is no bad experience, right? There's only good experience and learning experience.
Yeah, good and learning experience. That's how you should do it. But if you go against the stream, you're gonna find more resistance.
Okay, but how do you know what the stream is?
Well, this is your intuition and your consciousness. If your consciousness expands, you will be able to make the right choices. If your consciousness is narrow, you see only certain possibilities and you're stuck by those possibilities. See, if you think like me now, looking at all of you, and suppose my vision is like on those two beautiful people here in the front, and I have to make a choice, and I can only choose one or the second. It's my limited perspective. If I broaden my perspective and look at all of you, I can see, oh, there are all these possibilities I can look at, I can interact with, I can think with. So as I broaden my awareness, I broaden my perspective, I see more possibilities. And the more possibilities I see, give me more choice. That's why freedom grows with the expansion of consciousness.
So how do we know the choice is right or wrong?
Again, from the result of your action and based on your consciousness. See, if your consciousness is broad, you can see in the future. It's not only at the moment. A broader consciousness can see more possibilities and choose a better one. For example, I have no money, but my consciousness is narrow. I go to a counter and I take their money and go away.
People do that.
Yeah, they end up in prison and they suffer.
Some of them.
Right.
So can you tell me, Luis, you mentioned that you practice, like in a big group, like transcendental meditation, it's give you like something possible positive results, right?
Right.
So can you tell me more about it? Because you're not only one who is practicing, like in a huge group. They haven't reached nothing, unfortunately. You mentioned that result was like actually feelable, right?
Yeah, if you have a critical number of people, and we know the proportion, it's the square root of 1% of the population. We have studied it repeatedly, so that's
you have like formula of how many people need to be participating?
Square root of 1% of the population. So if you have, for example, the world population is now 8.1 billion people. 1% of that is 81 million. Square root of that is 9,000. Only 9,000, can you believe it? Only 9,000, if they do the program together morning and evening in the same place at the same time, they can change the trends of time. And that's why we are so insisting, and we are writing to the leaders and trying to get this group to be together and see that it actually creates the effect.
But actually, how this place can be fluid? I mean, it's gonna be like specific place. Why it's not to be changed? Like why it's important to be stable in one place?
Because that's how the nature works. If you want to create a laser beam, this light that we have is the same frequency as laser. What's the difference is that every individual wave of light is in coherence with every other individual. How do you create that coherence? You take this percentage of waves and you start putting them together, and they entrain, they take all the other waves with them. So that is a principle in physics also, where when a number of waves are in coherence, they take all the other waves together with them. That's an analogy to explain how in consciousness this happens.
No, it's reasonable actually. Yeah.
Thanks.
I have a question between if there is a connection between manifesting this focused thought and then consciousness. You're talking about consciousness as expanding our mind, and I've always learned that manifesting, if you want to do something in particular, you're focusing your thought. So is there a connection? Can you explain or expand on that?
Yeah. Focusing is asking the mind to focus on one object. It's like you are, if we take our analogy, you're on the surface of the ocean and you focus your mind on the wave. And then you try to get a stillness, but on a surface level of the mind. Transcendental meditation doesn't focus. Actually, it requires you not to force the mind to do anything. Just allow the mind to dive within itself. And we know there are like 3 categories of kinds of meditation. There is the focusing the attention. So you try to force the mind. And usually this creates a certain kind of waves in the brain, which we call beta or gamma waves, which is 20 to 40 hertz cycles per second of activity of the nervous system. If you use the other category, which is called like mindfulness usually, which is open monitoring, which means you sit there and you observe whatever is happening in a non-judgmental way. That's what mindfulness usually is. You are sitting there, but you are telling the mind to focus. It's like daydreaming. You're not focusing really, but you're observing what's happening. This leads to a kind of waves in the brain that resemble sleep or daydreaming kind of situation. Transcending is you're not focusing, you're not contemplating, you're just letting the mind dive by its own nature to the bottom of the ocean. And we find that this has what is called alpha wave, which is 8 to 10, 12 hertz, that is most optimally known to create coherence in the brain and a settled state of wakeful awareness. So it's different than the others.
Are there techniques that you teach that let you?
Yeah, we teach Transcendental meditation. It takes only 4 days to learn it. You get an introductory lecture. Now you can say you have done already the first step. So you're learning the first step already. You can call a teacher. You find tm.org and you can find a teacher. There are teachers here in the Miami area. There is a wonderful teacher called Kiki who is great that we can introduce you to. And she will give you just a short discussion to review whether you understand what you're going to do. And then you get what we call instruction and personal instruction. Everyone learns personally. In the instruction, you learn 2 things. You learn a mantra, which is specific for you. Of course, there are not 9 billion mantras. There are categories of mantras that the teachers choose those. And the second thing is how to use it. So the mantra and how to use it. And from the first time, you sit in the chair and you start meditating. But of course, there is a lot to learn more about what to do under the circumstance, what happens in the mind, to understand what's going on, what time to meditate, etc. And so there are 3 sessions after that that take you through actual checking so that you learn what to do properly. And then you're actually on your own. Of course, also we have follow-up. And we have an app that helps to follow up if you want to know more or understand more. So it's a very simple, natural technique and doesn't require any change in belief or any even understanding of all that we talked about, except you want to know that what it is that you are learning. So within 4 days, you're off and going.
Is it easier to achieve alpha waves in your brain by listening to specific types of music?
You can create alpha wave by having some kind of music. Yes, it is also a way, but the technique is more than just creating alpha wave. It creates coherence between front and back, because if you try to close the eyes, for example, and settle, you do get alpha waves in the occipital lobe, which is the visual cortex. And when you calm the visual cortex by stopping the vision, you get some kind of alpha wave. Or by hearing, then you get it in some parts of the brain. What happens with Transcendental meditation is that there is a coherence between the front and the back, right and left, which is very clear, which means you are really using the full potential of the brain. Yeah?
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed your talk. Could you speak a little bit about dreams and consciousness and kind of what's happening in the brain then, but also the difference when sometimes you have those dreams that really feel like you're conscious and then you wake up and they sort of influence your day and you almost don't, I almost feel more tired because I've had this kind of intense dream and kind of what's going on in your brain. consciousness and just kind of how to interpret that.
So dreaming is a natural state of consciousness, which is very important. In the dream, we act out sometimes things that we have desires that we cannot act up in the daily living. Sometimes it is cleaning up, removing stresses and strain. And it could be, if our consciousness is settled, it could be sometimes premonitory in a sense that it could give some intuition about things that are going to happen, so that time and space are no more limiting because the mind is floating. But if the dream is very rested, like if the sleep is very rested, then you can have a better day and a better functioning even during the day, because it has cleaned up and cleared up the system. So dream has a very important function. Every one of these states of consciousness has its important function. In fact, what we say is that the transcendental state of consciousness is a natural state of consciousness that used to be part of the routine of life, without which you are not living your full potential, and that it was lost, in fact. So meditation is not some additional thing that you have to do, but it's actually part of what is a natural process of having the different cycles of life: sleep, dream, waking, meditating, transcending. And these are all necessary to have a balanced state of consciousness.
So how do you connect the consciousness with the instinct? So what is the main instinct of the human being? Which is surviving instinct, correct?
Yeah.
On a daily basis, we know, we're conscious that we kill our own body by smoking, drinking, eating bad food, right? So we go against our main instinct, consciously, aware that we're doing harm. We're supposed to be opposite. We're supposed to say no, correct? So how do you connect that consciousness with the instinct? So which means the instinct of feeling great is higher than our main instinct.
That means you don't know enough about what is great. This is not actually higher consciousness. It means your consciousness is limited to a certain perspective, which is a short-term satisfaction. And it is not wide enough and broad enough to see what is long-term benefit. And these kind of habits, they come from subconscious loops that are created in our nervous system due to life situations and circumstances where we get habituated to something that actually give us a limited pleasure on a limited performance level of our nervous system. And if we were to clean up those stresses that are putting us in these routines that force us to smoke and force us to do the wrong things, then we clear up those stresses, and then we naturally are able to make the right choices. So when we expose ourselves to something, whatever it is, it changes us. So you expose yourself to drug, or you expose yourself to habits, you expose yourself to certain kind of knowledge, to certain kind of influence by others. All of these things get accumulated on yourself, and they actually start motivating you in a certain way. What you need is to clean up those things, because you have seen your satisfaction, but you have not seen the long-term benefit of not doing those things and have a greater satisfaction. So what we have seen with people who practice transcendental meditation regularly is they stop smoking, they stop doing the wrong things in a natural way, because their consciousness expands and they start seeing the benefits over longer period of time, long-range benefit rather than short-term satisfaction.
You only have 20 years to go, so.
Well, make the best out of it.
Is expanding your consciousness and therefore expanding your options, which gives you a lot more decisions to make. is there a point that it could become detrimental because there's too many decisions to be made, too many options in front of you?
What happens is expanding consciousness gives you clarity also, not just greater options, gives you clarity. See, when you expand your consciousness, you're not just suddenly seeing a million things and, oh my God, what do I choose, You're actually seeing things in a broader perspective with greater clarity of their importance, of their impact on you. That is what expanding consciousness also means. So you see something in front of you and you don't know what to do with it. But you can see something in front of you and you can say, well, I can see that this is not good for me. Or I can see that this is great and this is nourishing. And I can see why my consciousness is calm and broad and my perspective is clear. So it's like removing the glasses. If you wear yellow glasses and I give you a white paper, you will say it's a yellow paper. Your friend has red glasses. They see the same paper and they say it's red paper. You don't know you have yellow glasses. They don't know they have red glasses. You can start fighting because sincerely, 100%, you know you are seeing yellow. And the friend says sincerely, 100%, they are seeing red. You both are right and you both are wrong. So what we need is to remove the shadow, to remove the glasses, and then you see the right reality in its own perspective. And that's where you stop fighting with your friend. Or you see, oh, okay, you have red glasses, fine, you enjoy the red.
Or we agree to disagree.
Yes. She had her hand up.
Do you believe in ET and that we live in the Matrix and sort of like certain things are predetermined? You personally?
Predetermined? No. No, we have always the freedom. The freedom is always there to change things, but there are constraints. The constraints are due to our previous action. See, the same, I took this example of the seed, planting a seed of apple. And then you come to the tree, there is a constraint. There is an apple tree. You have created that apple tree. So there is a constraint today. But if you broaden your awareness, you can change the conditions to get mango from the apple.
But also we can make it look like apple but taste like mango. I mean, today we can make you look something else and taste completely different.
There are different possibilities, yes.
So you don't believe in the extraterrestrial, like
Predeterminism?
aliens?
Aliens, ET, yeah, extraterrestrial. I think it's hard to talk about something we have not yet experienced, but statistically speaking, if you look at the universe, there must be some places other than planet Earth that have life of different forms. It's possible, even same forms, different levels of evolution, more than us, less than us. Statistically speaking, it looks unlikely that life is only on planet Earth. So aliens are a possibility.
So is there a way to reach this state without the technique, or a moment in life, babies or something else that you can reach that? Or sometimes you're like, oh my God, I have so much clarity today about something specific. So are there other ways to...
Beautiful, yeah. I mean, all of us, we're gonna get to that place somehow. In one life or many lifetimes now. That is a different discussion. But yeah, people can have an epiphany. You read in the books, these saints or great people who suddenly have a moment of beatitude and epiphany, and they experience the transcendence. It can happen looking at a flower, looking at a scene, having a beautiful moment of love and inspiration, or aha experience discovering the laws of nature in the lab. All of these give that flash of transcendence. The main thing is how can you do it systematically and how can you maintain it over time, not just one beautiful experience.
What are your thoughts on astral projection?
Astral projection is one way of going to a different layer of consciousness, of ability to transport oneself in a field of reality, which is beyond just the physical limited reality. And that also, of course, depends on the state of consciousness, the refinement of awareness, and the clarity of perception. So it's possible, but it's a phenomenon. Yeah. I mean, sometimes people can speak about it, but they have just a momentary imagination, or, you know, so you cannot tell that everyone who tells you I went through that they really did. So this I cannot guarantee.
Yeah, I think tonight we've heard a lot about consciousness equating to different magnitudes, perspectives of awareness. But what about knowingness, the subconscious? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but what about, I'm very aware that there's 3 doors, but I know I'm going to choose the one to the furthest left. I don't know why, but I know it's calling to me. Is this more of a manufactured consciousness, or is there something deeper at work that we're still learning about?
That's a very interesting question. And I usually differentiate here awareness with consciousness. Now it's getting us into this deeper topics. Right. Awareness is what you're aware of now. You're aware maybe of what I'm saying, or suddenly your mind goes away and you're aware of a friend, or you're aware that you have to do this or you have to do that. But all of these are within your reality. So you might be a doctor who plays the guitar, plays the piano, drives a car, maybe a pilot, maybe a parent, maybe the son or daughter of somebody, and you have all these different functions. Now, all of these constitutes the patterns of your consciousness, your personal, individual consciousness. But when you are a doctor practicing medicine in front of a patient, you're not a musician playing the guitar. You're not a parent. You are just a doctor. So your awareness now is activating out of your complex consciousness a certain aspect of your being, and that is attending to a patient. When you play the piano, you're not the doctor, even though you are the doctor also at the same time. But you're not at this moment a doctor, you're a piano player, you are a musician, and your awareness is now going towards that particular function, and you experience it. Now, there are different layers of awareness. There are things in us that have constituted our self due to experience, through previous exposure, memories, etc., that we are not aware of on the surface, but they constitute part of our inherent subconscious, if you like. Subconscious in the sense, the same sense as now I'm playing the piano, my existence as a doctor is there, but it's in my subconscious. I can access it if I want. I can shift from being a piano player to a doctor, but it's a shift. And so when I'm playing the piano, my subconscious has all of these other values. They might influence how I play the piano. Maybe I just saw a patient, and in my subconscious, the patient is in my awareness. And now when I play the piano, maybe I'll play with more melancholy or more sadness or more, refined feeling. I don't know, based on my previous experience. So what I have had in my previous experience is going to influence whatever I am aware of now, even though I am not directly aware of that reality. So that's what we call the subconscious. Now, this is a name, subconscious, but from my paradigm, it's a different level of consciousness, that's all. So there are all these layers of consciousness, some of them hidden from awareness at some time. Sometimes they declare themselves and they are experienced within awareness, and sometimes they influence us without us being aware of them.
So what if we have awareness, knowingness, but also a third realm or level of creation? Are we able to create our own awareness? That maybe is right or wrong, but it's just what we perceive we're able to construct.
Yeah, if we want to go to creativity, and creativity is the force of life in a sense that is pushing us towards more and more. And that underlying all of this is a force of wanting to be more, wanting to achieve more, and then ideas, intuitions that get us to be creative. All of these are layers and layers of our awareness.
So we are able to create our own awareness.
We are able to create, yes, to guide our awareness. So whatever you actually put your attention on is going to influence you more. And attention is very important. So how you direct your attention influences what you experience. What you experience influences gradually more and more who you are. So if you experience the same thing over and over and over again, it's going to be stronger in your life. If you experience this one thing and then another thing that is contradictory, they might eliminate each other. So there is a dynamics in consciousness where a nice experience or something like that and a contradictory experience, they can balance each other. It's a very dynamic aspect.
Guys, I want to thank you, and especially I want to thank Dr. Nader, but we all know that this can go on forever, right? So thankfully, this is going to go on for a little bit longer because we're going to have a book signing out there. You know, I'm getting a copy, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been incredible, absolutely incredible. You know what? We'll take one more. How about that? Who hasn't?
Since there's infinite possibilities that we can choose from, do you believe that there are multi-dimensions existing within those possibilities?
It is all, it's a nice thing to finish on, actually. It is a field of all possibilities, absolutely all possibilities. You can be anything you want to be. You can grow your life in a way where there are no limitations. And they're actually our limiting beliefs that prevent us from being anything we want and achieving anything we want. So by expanding consciousness, we can truly have the field of all possibilities available to us, because the field of consciousness is a field of all possibilities. Only certain of these possibilities emerge. We can get stuck with them. If we have limiting beliefs, we are stuck with our limiting beliefs. By dissolving the limiting beliefs and going back to the self, we can be a master of our destiny and be all we want to be and anything we dream to be.
Round of applause,
Thank
please.
you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Akademy, thank you so much.